Okay, so consider in this section the expansion and settlement of the Dutch in Southern Africa. As we have noted, that after the exit of Jan van Riebeck, further expansion of European settlement began with the coming of Simon van der Stel in 1679. Van der Stel had come to strengthen the base in the settlement for the Dutch company. Of course, he achieved this by encouraging immigration and also turning the settlement into a colony, all right, unlike the settlement system which was created by Riebeck. So by this time, Europe was just coming out of the religious war, and the relics of the dust was not fully settled. For instance, there were quite a number of rebels, as I've mentioned in France. The Protestants were already suffering from persecution under the Catholic majority, which you have noted earlier. The Dutch company, however, took advantage of all of this situation, to bring in more people, into the colony in Southern Africa. So this started from 1688, where the Dutch offered the fleeing French Protestants a new home in the Cape, far from their Catholic homeland, and there were quite a number of innovations also put in place by the Dutch, as I've noted, injecting more people from different parts of Europe, prisoners and servants. So, of course, they were not only providing new homes for the Protestants and other immigrants to practice their religion, they were going to give these Europeans land to work to work on and to sustain themselves and to start a new life at the Cape. And this would have a very, very severe implication on the land and the people of Southern Africa. More importantly, they were given land to provide, given opportunity to provide a new system, a new racial system in Southern Africa. In about 5 years, the French, for instance, who migrated to the colony, were over 200, and 200, and subsequently the population started increasing. The presence of these French Huguenots was to have a profound and a lasting effect on the development of the colony. Most of these people became, as a matter of fact, the first colonists, of the Dutch themselves, in addition to the indigenous people. And these people, because they had no other alternative, no other homes other than the New Cape, they had to immerse themselves in the social economic system. Most of these people would have to dispossess the indigenous people of their means of livelihoods, especially taking over their occupation. Most of these Dutch Boers, for instance, became farmers and subsequently took into cattle grazing, which was a major occupation of the Khoikhoi, and as you have noted. So an important development in this regard was the creation of a definite government and an administration by the Dutch. The Cape during this period was under the command of Governor General and Council in India, just like the way the British, after the annexation and colonization of Lagos, how to match Lagos with its West African colonies in Gambia, in Sierra Leone, in Gold Coast. All right. So because of the vastness of these Dutch empires, the Dutch, probably station have a governor general and council in India apart, and this actually regulated the affairs in the colony. So major decisions and policy of the Cape, were controlled by this political structure, and there was also a high court and an army in charge of defending the territory of the colony. And by the second half of the 17th century, as we have noted, the simple settlement had evolved, had transformed, metamorphosed, if you like, into what became a colony with its own government, and a new development actually occurred, which changed the scheme of things. So the Dutch by this time had cemented their presence here by establishing an authority through which they will subjugate their colonies, either the French Huguenots, the Khoikhoi, the San, the Bantu, either Nguni, Basotho, Herero, Ovambo, or Zulu, and all of that. So they, of course, they would relate with the oncoming Europeans also, who would become interested, because from in our 300 level class, as I've noted, more Europeans became so interested in the Cape. The Germans came, so consequently, following the mineral revolution, which we consider in 300 level, the apart from the French, the British came, and all the Utilanders And all of this contributed to the making of a historical catastrophe and tragedy in southern Africa. So the expansion and spread of these Boers and colonies was, greatly linked with the search of grazing land. As I've mentioned, most of them became so interested in cattle grazing. Crop farming also was, became a major occupation of the Boers. And of course, this would affect the means of livelihood of survival of the indigenous people. It was just a matter of time that, confrontations and anarchy, would, be unleashed, between these two groups. Those the large number of people who joined this trade, caused a pressing need of grazing land. All right, and of course, the land question became so intense, such that farmers competed not just for sales, and trade, but for land. The Africans themselves were pushing each other to the brim, as we will see in our 300 level when we're considering the Infikani, which is a period of disruption, and turbulent movement in the history of Southern Africa. Notably, of course, we've noted that the land needed for cattle was not the kind offered by the Dutch government, and that was one of the reasons that caused the Boers to move further into the interior. In 300 level, we look at the Great Trek, which is a notable, a very interesting topic to look at. So the colonies inevitably began to move beyond the areas they occupied at the Cape, in search of grazing land to sustain their pastoral activities. So this was known as the Trek Boers, and they went beyond the established frontiers and created new extension. Successive governors in Southern Africa, the Dutch governor sought to contain, the expansion, but this had no substantive effect. All right, as the Dutch continued. So this, of course, culminated, in severe conflict between the Boers and the indigenous people. The expansion of the Boers affected other groups that had, first settled there, the autochthonous people, and it also, disturbed the rhythm of agricultural lives and pastoral lives of the San, of the Khoikhoi, and of the Bantu. All right, so the San, among the other people, indigenous people who looked this Dutch in the face, the San resisted fiercely, but like the Khoikhoi, they were defeated decisively, and killed without mercy by the Dutch, by the Boers. European Boers who needed the land, had occupied by the 18th century, had occupied everywhere, launched massacres and obliterations of the human hindrance to acquiring the land. This was a massive, existential calamity that befell the Khoikhoi and the San people, and also it also came to meet the Bantu. It was the height of dispossession. It was the height of dislocation, the opprobrium, and the rascality on the part of the Boers, or who didn't care. All they needed was to take over the land grabbing phenomenon. So, of course, they also brought smallpox epidemics that spread from Euro-Asian camps to the native camps, and also greatly led to more loss of native population, especially the Khoisan, who were affected by, the diseases, and also by the use of weaponry and, arms against them, the dispossession. So what we have noted in this session is that the coming of the European was attributed or is associated with the making of the historical tragedy in Southern Africa. Of course, this was made possible by the Dutch quest for vegetable, for meat and fresh water. So if in the exam you were asked that meat, fresh water and vegetable, how logical is this in the making of a historical catastrophe in Southern Africa? So you would be able to situate this within the context, of the factors that drove the attention, that brought about the attention of the Dutch in Southern Africa. Of course, this had an overarching effect, as we have talking about, on race relation. In conclusion, we've noted that three distinct categories of people, inhabited the Southern African area before 1800, which you have mentioned: the indigenous people, all right, the making of the Khoikhoi and the San and the Bantu on the one hand. Then you now have the Dutch, the French Huguenots came subsequently, and other Europeans came. So these were the indigenous people we've mentioned have, the Bantu, apart from the Bantu, the San, Khoikhoi, and other Bantu subgroups, Soxa, the Nguni, and all the other who shaped the Southern Africa. So the European Asian immigrants, as we have noted, were the Dutch, the English, and the Huguenots fleeing the French Protestants, and several legislation in Europe. But all of this fell on the indigenous people, and this actually affected. So, of course, we have noted that the coming of the European was what led to the rhetorics in some of the European literature that Southern Africa, just like people have said, that Lagos is a no man's land. That Southern Africa was a no man's land because the Dutch claimed they met no inhabitants at the Cape when they encountered. But this is an erroneous belief. It is not just an erroneous belief, but is a misconception arising from palpable ignorance of the historical anthropology of Southern Africa, as we have noted. Okay, all right. The erroneous belief that this area was empty and not inhabitant gave the justification for European hegemony, and also the manipulation of power, which later gave rise to the apartheid crisis in Southern Africa during the 19th century. Thank you very much.